Now, you talked a moment ago about Virginia values. To what degree are you a product of Virginia? To what degree do you reflect Virginia?
I think each person is a product of all the experiences they've had.
Mm-hmm.
And I find myself being very deferential to people who are older than I am, to people in authority, and very polite to people. And I can't imagine young lawyers coming out of law school as they do now. The judge asks them a question, they'll say, yeah or yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, intuitively, I say yes, sir, to a judge because that's what a lawyer's supposed to do. And I've been conditioned to honor my word. I mean, that's something that Virginians pride themselves on. You don't need a contract. If you give your word, then you live and die by that word. And that's something that you do in Virginia. So, and I think those kind of things, and, you know, there are exceptions, of course.
Surely.
There's treachery, always.
Yes.
But I remember we had a discussion over the bonds, and we used to put the full faith and credit of the city up to get bonds for building highways. And so the city attorney said there's no legal way that that can be enforced. I said, you don't need, and I think that was me at the time, I said, you don't need a legal way to enforce it. I said, we put our name behind it, we're going to stand behind these bonds. That's the way we do things here. I mean, that's the way you're brought up. So that influences your thinking. And it helps me now in the Senate because the Senate is a collegial body, and even though it's controlled by Republicans, you have friends on the other side who respect you because you keep your word.
Now, you become the mayor in 1977,
Right.
And by that time you've been on the council 10 years, 7 years as vice mayor, but there's a period when the same council stays in office longer than it might have done. This is a kind of complicated story, but take us through this story. How does all this happen?
Well, we have 2-year terms, and so on the eve of the election in 1972, the Supreme Court of the United States enjoins the council election. So instead of going from 70 to 72, that council stayed in office until 77, until the litigation was over. The litigation was necessitated because the Voting Rights Act required that any change in the procedure has to be approved and cleared by the Justice Department. And when they annexed, that change had not been.
And the annexation involved what?
Well, in Virginia, the way the state provides for cities to survive is to expand into surrounding counties and recapture some of the growth that it has spawned. So that's a traditional way. We have 36 cities in 100 counties, and suburbs are growing around the cities. Well, what the legislature did was they realized they couldn't get a constitutional amendment, so they put a moratorium on annexations. Before that occurred, the city filed a legitimate annexation against Chesterfield. That procedure was winding its way through the courts. The city would have gained a lot of taxable material, taxable assets. But if they had waited until the end, the city, another council election would have ensued, and my team would have won, which means we could have stopped the annexation, we could have turned it down. They thought that's what we were going to do. And only the hairdresser knows for sure what we would have done. But anyway, they got together, the mayor and the majority faction of council, and compromised the annexation with the surrounding county and settled it quickly so that it would be effective by December 31st.
And the effect of the annexation is that the white population of Richmond expand.
There wouldn't have been anything wrong with that if they'd done it lawfully. But when they compromised it, the mayor had a big mouth, and he told a white member of council, who's a member of my team, that we got to do this to keep the niggas from taking over the city. We don't want another Washington, D.C. He also told that to people at the ball game. He told it to a lot of people, white people, and I guess he figured that we all white, we're going to stick together. But they told it. So when the court case came up, that evidence was before the federal court, that the motive for the annexation was to keep blacks from exerting influence in the city. So the federal court in the District of Columbia said, well, wait a minute, this is a legal motive. The annexation was proper, but the settlement, the premature settlement, was for racial reasons. So you have to get a territory back or go to a district system. So the city didn't want to get a territory back because that would have had the same effect. They didn't have to stand election from the old city, which means blacks would have taken over. So they decided to go for the district system. So they approved the district plan that both sides agreed on for 9 districts. And we won 5 of the 9. Of course, I'd been a leader since the first day of council. I was a logical choice for mayor. And Richmond had its first black mayor.